So this is the last section of Chapter 10, Biodiversity of Animals, and this is Section 10C. Now, we had moved into chordates, discussing chordates, and so we're going to pick up where we left off, and sort of this opening question is interesting because at first glance, there are similarities among dolphins and sharks, even though a shark is a fish and a dolphin is a mammal. But they actually, are quite different. So the first vertebrates to evolve were fishes. They evolved about 540 million years ago. The fish lineage was the first to evolve jaws, and modern fishes include several lineages: hagfish, lamprey, cartilaginous fishes, and bony fishes. So hagfishes have a skull but lack a recognizable backbone. Lampreys have a skull and a backbone, but they lack a jaw. Cartilaginous fishes have flexible skeletons made of cartilage, and they must constantly move to keep water flowing through their gills. Most are marine predators. Bony fishes were the first group to have internal skeletons reinforced with calcium. That's why they're called bony fishes. They also have an adaptation of a swim bladder that helps them to maintain buoyancy, and an operculum that circulates water over the gills, which is more efficient. So here are some examples of bony fishes. The lake trout, there's a butterfly fish, there's a seahorse, and a skipjack tuna. Now the lobed fin fishes are interesting because they represent an evolutionary branch of the bony fishes. They have muscular fins supported by rod-shaped bones, and they're interesting because they are homologous to amphibian limb bones. So they think that this is one of the sort of intermediate types of organisms. Moving on to amphibians and reptiles, they have 4 limbs, which means they are tetrapods. The amphibians were the first tetrapods, and they were followed by the evolution of reptiles, which actually include birds. So amphibians live on land, but they must reproduce in water. They exhibit a blend of both aquatic and terrestrial adaptations, which makes them interesting. Some of the aquatic adaptations include their eggs lack shells, and the tadpole stage has gills. Terrestrial adaptations include the adults have lungs, they have a musculoskeletal system with 4 limbs, and a moist skin. And here are some examples of amphibians, some of which you probably are familiar with, like frogs and toads and salamanders. Now, reptiles, which include birds, can complete their entire life cycle on land. So they are called amniotes, which are animals that develop inside a fluid-filled amniotic egg. And one hypothesis places reptiles into 4 groups, although this is a subject of debate. But one of those groups are dinosaurs and birds, and it's thought that birds and dinosaurs have quite a bit in common, and that birds really are belong in the reptile group. So here are 4 major reptile groups: the turtles, the crocodilians, the lizards and snakes, and then the dinosaurs and the birds. And it is interesting that fossils suggest that birds are part of a dinosaur group called theropods. So this is an interesting dinosaur that had feathers but likely did not fly. Now, mammals are tetrapods that have hair and produce milk in mammary glands. Um, After the dinosaur mass extinction at 65 million years ago, mammals rapidly diversified. Um, Modern mammals can be divided into three groups: monotremes, marsupials, and atherians. So monotremes are the only surviving egg-laying mammals, and the only modern monotremes are the duck-billed platypus and 4 species of echidna. Now, I have to say, whenever I see the duck-billed platypus, which I always find like really, really interesting, that it always makes me think about Perry the Platypus from Phineas and Ferb. So I don't know if you guys ever watched that, but I just had to throw that in there. Marsupials are interesting because they mature in pouches. And so after a brief pregnancy, a marsupial gives birth to a tiny embryonic offspring that actually completes its development in its mother's pouch attached to a nipple. And it's also interesting that the opossum is a marsupial. It's actually the only marsupial found in North America. Of course, most marsupials are in Australia. So Australia split off from other continents about 60 million years ago, and isolated from evolution of later groups of mammals, marsupials diversified extensively. Now, eutherian offspring are born fully developed after maturing with a placenta. And the placenta of a eutherian connects the developing fetus to the uterine wall. This allows nutrient uptake, waste elimination, and gas exchange via the mother's blood supply. And many mammals are born encased in an amniotic sac, like us. So most mammals, such as this dog, are terrestrial. These are eutherians. There are bats, and also a number of aquatic mammals as well. So let's talk a little bit about sort of human evolution. Where do humans sit on the tree of life on Earth? They are in the phylum of chordates, and we are mammals that belong to the order of primates. As a group, primates share some distinctive characteristics. They have large brains, they have binocular vision, they have limber joints, limbs, and digits, they have complex behaviors, and they have extended parental care. Primates are further divided into non-anthropods and anthropoids. Humans evolved from ancestral primates several million years ago, and fossil and DNA evidence suggests that the human lineage, the hominins, split from other primates around 6 to 7 million years ago. Many lineages evolved, but only one, ours, actually has survived. So I'm going to actually let you just go through these last three slides with highlights in the timeline of human evolution. I will not be asking you any questions about this area, but it is really, really interesting. And so definitely take the time to read through these different sort of parts of human evolution. So there are a few important points about human evolution that I do want to cover. Humans did not evolve from chimps, although we share a common ancestor. Human evolution did not proceed from one species to the next. Human evolution is not an orderly procession, and many species coexisted, which is, there's a lot of data for that, which is also super interesting. Key human features did not evolve all at once. So features such as upright posture and speech evolved separately and at different times. It's interesting to think about when did we arrive sort of in the time of Earth. So if you imagine the history of life on Earth compressed into a single 24-hour day, and the clock starts ticking at 5,000 million years ago and goes to the present, the genus Homo arrived at about 34 seconds before midnight, about 2 million years ago, and Homo sapiens arrives less than 4 seconds before midnight. So it gives you an idea that it's really, when you think about the entire history of the Earth, these are fairly recent additions.